Hi, everybody. We are back today. I was off last week, and we are back to the home office again. I wanted to come back to the home office to start to get a little bit better light on my face. This is something that I strongly encourage for any of your interviews. Anytime you can have the windows behind you and have the light coming in on your face, it's really, really good for interviews. So, in my new office, it's a little dark, and I think we've seen over the last few weeks some Wi-Fi hiccups. So I just wanted to come back. And so now we're back in plant land with my plants. If you've watched any of the previous lives that came from my old place. So I'm excited to be back. So we're going to just spend a few minutes on the setup, right? And then we'll get right down into the details and answer all the questions that come in today. Let's start with yesterday's video. Um, you know, I can't emphasize enough how important the pivot point is. And what I really focused in on in that short video yesterday is how do we start our actions after we hear that behavioral question? And the pivot point is, I'd say it's missed about 80 to 90% of the time, right? So definitely watch that video. As I always recommend, I'm pretty low and slow. So you can obviously always go back and watch any of my content on 2x. And I always recommend I do all my learning on 2x. So yes, YouTube looks at watch time, but I'm just going to encourage you. You can speed me up because you'll hear how slow the pace and tone is in the videos. So I'm going to take a quick step back and then we're going to dive right in. My name's Jeff H. Sipe. If this is your first time here, the business is practiceinterviews.com. We do one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching. And today, if you use the coupon code, and let me just confirm this because I've been messing this up all morning. If you use the coupon code TAG, TAG, you get $100 off of our interview mastery course. We're getting so much positive feedback on that course. That coupon code of TAG, TAG is only good through 11:59 Pacific time today. So if you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing. I do a new content video every other Tuesday, and I go live every Wednesday. And if I'm ever not going to produce that video or go live, I'll announce it to the community. And I was off last week, but excited to be back. And I don't see any break from the lives for basically the rest of the year up until maybe the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks of December. Okay, so let's dive into it. The title of today is it's really slow moving. I was trying to push that snail along in that thumbnail, and what we're seeing is that now this is pretty much the status quo across big tech. Every position that comes in, we probably need to be a little bit grateful for because the hiring will be slow for the rest of this year, and we're probably going to see some of that lingering into at least Q1 of next year. We're looking at 6 months of slowness. So we've got to hang in there, take advantage of all the opportunities that we have. All right, we're 3.5 minutes in, no time to waste. We will answer and get to all the questions today. I will handle those questions all in order. No need to repeat the questions. And obviously, we're a positive community. Try and keep it positive and share data, feedback. It doesn't need to be all questions. All right, let's dive right in. Okay, I'm getting very impatient because the team matching at Google is getting delayed. Is there any way to expedite it? And what's a good anchor for an L6 L7 TPM in the Bay? There's really no way to expedite it other than to follow the steps and the cadence, which I'm sure you're doing. Check in on a weekly basis and be gracious and kind. That's all we can really do. So there's really nothing else you can do. You can identify positions that you find online that you think are a match. If you do that, less is more. Think up to only maybe one a week. Give them the link. Write 3 to 5 bullets for why you're a fit. Provide your availability to do the team match call for that position. So you can take that step. It usually doesn't work. It's a very, very small percentage, but you can. Now, L6 and L7 anchors should be incredibly high for TPMs. If I'm anchoring for a 6, believe it or not, I'm going to go into the 600s. And for an L7, I'm going to go into the 700s. These jobs are paying incredibly well for Google Bay 2022. I've seen some big, big numbers. Anticipate that An L6 will probably pay in the low to mid fives, and an L7 should definitely get into the sixes. Continue to amaze me with your knowledge of G's inner workings. I did work there for a few years, so really appreciate it all the time in the community. Doesn't go unnoticed. You're awesome. Thank you so much for that positive feedback. After passing portfolio review, you're still waiting for T-Match and UX. I'm worried that there won't be any movement. Is it a fair assessment that my profile is just not good enough? I always remain very engaged, positive, and friendly with my sourcer, but I'm generally a little frustrated with the crickets. Any advice on what I can do to stay relevant? So let's go into like the mental mindset. I was thinking about this. There was a Slack comment today. And by the way, practiceinterviews.com, free resources, join our Slack group. It's all free. The Slack group's getting pretty big. It's 3,500 people, and the community is freaking awesome. Like people are just really holding each other up, giving good advice. It's really great. There's not a lot you can do other than stay gracious and kind and positive. And again, go back to that advice I mentioned in the beginning, maybe try and find and highlight roles. Now, UX, we heard a couple weeks ago that there would be a little bit of prioritization on UX L5 roles and above in the Bay. Remember, it's going to be a one-off basis. Teams are always going to have needs. UX is obviously a critical part of the business. So yeah, you just need to try and stay positive, and continue to check in. Remember, I'm going into the psychology of if you're gracious and kind and check in with your recruiter and check in with your recruiter and check in with your recruiter, you are making them feel bad every single time they don't follow up with you. So as long as we do it in a really nice manner, let's make them feel bad about their lack of organization, lack of follow through, and ultimately, hopefully we'll hear back at some point. I hope that helps. Sipe PhD university grad position not available. I wonder if there'll be an opening in January of 2023. I'll graduate in May of 2023 and couldn't decide whether to wait for Google openings or apply to others. I think that at this point, just based on what we've seen from Google, just not only in this hiring freeze, but classically they move slow. Look for other opportunities. Keep Google in mind, but we got to open it up. And I'm sure that's going to be a repetitive part of our live today, which is good. We want to really touch base on how to proceed with all the slowness, especially at Google. Passed HC and team match for data role, Google Trust and Safety in July before it was paused until further notice. Similar role published at YouTube Trust and Safety. Reached out to your recruiter to express interest. It was forwarded to the YouTube recruiter, different person who now wants me to do another SQL coding test, the first step of the application. Is this now a completely new process at YouTube? Will my performance in these interviews impact my already HC approved package at Google? Right back to that new recruiter with those questions. I mean, typically, no. Typically, this shouldn't impact it. You should have that information and that should carry with you, but really ask your recruiter these questions. And if they can't answer them, ask them to go find the answers, obviously in a really nice and gracious way, but they need to be answering those questions for you, because the fact that you were HC approved and team matched and all of a sudden pushed on to something else, that's not a really good experience. Okay, so something to keep in mind. It looks like, oh, I froze a little bit and I came home so that this wouldn't happen. We can check what's going on with the speeds here. Okay, it looks like we're back to normal speeds. So hopefully we won't have any more hiccups. Google India PM L4 L5. You've cleared on-site interviews and waiting for team match. Your recruiter says it would take time as Google is going through reprioritization. You've been waiting 3 weeks now. How much longer should I wait? What are the chances of rejection at team match at HC stage? I can't tell you how long it's going to take. I just will encourage you to continue to touch base with your recruiter as much as you possibly can. And then, what's this last question? The chances of being rejected at team match or HC stage, that's a little bit of an unknown, right? I think there's always like a 33% chance at HC, 33% chance that you don't find a team, 40%. So there's always possibilities that happens at those stages, but you just got to think positively and control what you can control. You can't control HC, but you can absolutely control the team match stage. I hope that helps. Hi, Jeff. Passed my 3 interviews mid-August. The feedback from the recruiter was that the interviews were fine and they would try to schedule a team matching interview, but you're still waiting. Okay. I touch base with the recruiter on a weekly basis and he's very responsive. Yesterday told me that the role has been prioritized and you're still being considered for the role. Good news. There are other candidates in the process. He needs to wait for the process to finish before he confirms the next stage. This is expected by the end of next week. Do you think I have a chance? So remember, well, I always want you to think positively, right? But I can't tell you because I just don't have access to that data. That's my challenge point. I can never tell anybody the percentage chances. So here's what I do know. They like you. They like you, and if they didn't like you, they would have let you go. They have an opportunity at some of these companies, and it's not just the Googles of the world. All these companies are having slowdowns and freezes. So it means that the talent pool is bigger, which makes it more challenging, but they like you. That's what we know. That's why you're still in the mix. So just try and stay as patient as possible. And I know that that's very, very difficult. Good luck. What is happening at GCP? I was told 3 weeks ago the role is prioritized and we're good to go, but I keep getting the no updates since then. How much do we want to open up and talk about what's going on at GCP? So let's introduce some data points with a good audience right now. So I did hear from one of my customer engineer negotiation clients that they are moving forward in the next steps of getting that offer through. I've also heard from a couple of other customer engineers that the total number of customer engineer openings across California and the US is 3, like a very small number. I don't know how realistic that number is. I mean, the reality of GCP is that there's really no nice way to put it. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. This has been not great. It shouldn't take this long, and there's too much internal of this going on because that's the reason why it's taking so long. Too many people are sticking to their guns and not really finding a way to collaborate and work with each other because remember, this freeze started in mid-July. So we're 2 months later. And I think there's just too much internal politics, too many people who have been there too long, who feel like they can put up some sort of fight. And it's to take 2 months to get your priorities together when you're this elite company. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. When HC takes into account a referral to make a decision, okay, what carries the most weight in terms of skills, traits, specified background, work ethic, Googliness, or why should we hire X? The item that carries the most weight in an internal referral is the level of recommendation. Like, is this the best person I've ever worked with? Are they in the top 5%, top 10%? What's the rating? And then what are those great things they're saying about you? Internal references rarely carry a lot of power, but if they're on the edge and you had 2 or 3 very strong internal references that were highlighting you as one of the best people they've worked with, that's what's going to push you over the edge. Hey, Jeff, got an offer from Google and joining in November. Amazing. Thank you for all the interview tips. My previous role was closed due to reprioritization, but luckily HR sent my profile for a new role immediately. Okay, this is awesome news. Just want to say a huge congrats. Again, this just shows the entire audience and community what's possible. I know it's been a little rough, a little brutal, right? Going through this. So it does happen. So this is where that patience and graciousness and kindness is going to come in. Congrats. Thank you so much for coming in and letting us know that you made it through. Hi, Jeff. GCP non-tech role was removed from their careers page earlier today. What can I make of it? Spoke to my recruiter last week and she is very positive and confident. Maybe they removed it because they've decided you're the person and they're just trying to get things aligned in the background. We don't know. The way positions are coming up and getting pulled down is funkier than ever. So I just don't want to overreact to it. We're just seeing much more of this. And this was even pre-freeze. Like 2022 is really weird with the job posts going up and down, especially at Google. So I don't want you to read too much into it. Put that trust into your recruiter. We never know 100% how it's going to play out until we've signed that offer letter and we have a start date. But keep us posted. But the job stuff, the job post has been super funky all year. So don't worry too much about it. Great to be here with you as well. I'm excited to be back. It's always weird to take a week off. I feel like it's been weeks when I take a week off, so it's always fun to be back. Cleared all the rounds. GCP manager role positively last month end. Got a couple of strong hires. The recruiter informed me that they're deciding which regions they'll continue hiring, and that the manager will communicate their decision by the end of this month. They have clearly said I am selected, but waiting for the role to be prioritized. Do I need to be worried or just wait? Yeah, just got to wait. Unfortunately, there's really nothing you can do at this point. You can continue to check in. I mean, here's the good news. If they're telling us October, which who knows, again, we don't really know because they've been saying this for weeks and weeks, but we're not too far away from it, right? We're at the 21st now, so just continue to stay in touch. And I strongly recommend, I think that Monday is October 3rd. So if you haven't heard back by then, just check in on that date. And good luck. Let us know how it goes. Got an update today. Google hiring is slowly getting back on track. Okay. And team matching is happening before HC now, according to my recruiter. Okay. So the majority of team matches do happen before HC. So that's not a new move. It's much easier to get you through HC with an identified team, a strong statement of support. So that hasn't really changed. It can be different role to role based on interview performance, et cetera. But it sounds like good news. Keep us posted. You got information from your recruiter at the start of September that the freeze had ended and they will proceed with team matching now. Haven't heard from him since, even after my follow-up. What should I expect? Continue to follow up. I want to go back early on into the conversation. The more we follow up with graciousness and kindness, every time that email goes into their inbox, and every time you're nice and gracious and kind and they ignore you, that's going to have a little bit of mental pain for them. And that's what we want, because no candidate who's in the process should go more than a week without hearing back from their recruiter. It's not hard. It just requires a little bit of systems, a little bit of organization, and it's very, very easy. So any recruiter that tells you they're too busy, they had other priorities, especially now when things are slow, it's just a lack of organization. Okay, so just keep following up and continue to be gracious and kind. Hey, Jeff, this community has been unreal for me in the last few weeks. Don't know what I would have done without you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, remember it. Sure, I put together a couple of the tools, right? But it is really community driven, and the community's been amazing. And again, I just want to go practiceinterviews.com, our Slack group. We have 3,500 people in that group, and we have some ballers, some very, very active participants that want to help. Some of those are current Googlers, current Amazon employees, current Meta employees. So get in there. You're going to get your questions answered. The community is holding each other up. I'll pop in there maybe once to twice a week, but the community mostly is driving really good conversations. So just something to keep in mind. And it's obviously 100% free. Hi, good to see you back. Good to be back. I've heard that Google typically has HC grants in October and positions are expected to open again then starting of next quarter. Yeah, we're hearing a little bit for Q4, how that all plays out. But I would say typically, no. I mean, typically what I've seen just in general is that it's not like there's more hiring committee granted later on. But what is a little bit misunderstood is that the hiring usually in my time there and what I've seen over the last 4 years, there's usually a huge ramp in September, October, November. This is obviously a quite a unique year, but they really do a hiring push towards the end of the year to make sure that these hiring managers get the headcount they have. And I don't think that will be 100% different this year. So hopefully we see some opening up really, really soon. Hi, nice to have you here. I got one strong hire, one lean hire, hire L3, and 2 hires L4. Is it possible it would be down level to L3? Yeah, it's possible. Remember, we're not too fixated on level. We're more fixated on comp because you can jump levels pretty quickly. Like if you perform, they're not going to hold you back. They want to make sure that they're advancing their strongest people. So really focus in on more on comp, but absolutely it could be down level to an L3. I always want to acknowledge that there's always potential for that. Got told my HC process will take 4 weeks with a hopeful start date in October for a senior technical writer. My first role was reprioritized. The recruiter submitted me for other roles. Okay, yeah. So we got some interesting data on tech writers this week in our Slack community. They had basically removed almost all the tech writer positions. So it sounds like, David, you're in a good spot and you probably got in there early enough, and there's probably a strong need for that team or that position. So that's good news. Keep us posted. All right, Ben, you passed HC for L3 SWE campus last May. Supposed to start T-Match in July and August and September, but it got frozen. Recently, I've been checking with the recruiter, but you're getting ghosted. Anything you can do? You can just continue that really positive cadence and continue to check in. These L3 SWE campus roles, I mean, they've essentially gone away. And that's probably why you're getting ghosted. Not that that's acceptable, because it's absolutely not. But I don't believe that they're going to be hiring for these roles in the near future. So I might recommend trying to find a job at another company. Obviously, if you were strong enough to pass these interviews, you would have a great opportunity to pass them somewhere else. But yeah, I would recommend interviewing at other places, because I don't see them hiring new grad L3 SWEs for probably 9 months, would be my guess. And again, I'm just guessing. Forgot to mention your roles in GCP India. I believe more roles are being authorized there as opposed to other regions. Can't say for sure. I don't know, but I have seen a number of roles popping up in India and a lot of opening. And remember, that would make sense, growing that market in India, which is a big target market for GCP. So that makes sense, but I can't confirm 100% that that's true, but I've seen a little bit of that as a trend as well. Thanks a lot. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm here to do. Hi, could you provide any info on L6 salaries for UX design lead in India? I cannot. I have had negotiation clients in India, but I'm less familiar with the market. So what I can tell you is that UX design should pay a little bit closer to a software engineer. Let's call it 85% of what a software engineer is making, maybe 90% of what a software engineer is making. And what we know is that we have great data on software engineer salaries in India. Levels.fyi, take the last 5 to 10 L6 hires for software engineers, find that average number, times it times 0.85, 0.90, that's what you should make. So you should be anchoring at probably 115, 120% of that average between those software engineers. Let me know if that makes sense. I did a video on that, and I always recommend that we're utilizing software engineer data because we have so much good data there, and then typically taking a smaller percentage of that, because usually software engineers are the best paid roles. The only thing that's paying similar right now is maybe like a product manager. You receive feedback that your CE Infra Mod L4 role will be deprioritized. Recruiter said that they will touch base when headcount opens maybe in 2023. What do you think about this? Is this good news? Well, I would think it would be good news if it was prioritized and they were going forward with an offer, but we're hearing a lot of push to 2023, and maybe they can figure out their need for CEs moving forward. The CE roles are going to be tricky, and I think I've been pretty forthcoming and open with this audience. I have multiple CE negotiation clients who are all sitting and waiting. I got one piece of positive feedback from one that they were going to move forward. That step hasn't actually happened. So yeah, we're all in sit and wait mode. But the fact that you've gotten to this stage is good news. Stay in touch with your recruiter. Maybe probably just like a monthly cadence, check in with them, see if that's an okay cadence for them. But I hope that it's good news for the future, because GCP is a revenue driver. About 15% of their revenue comes through GCP. So you would hope that there would be some prioritization as we go into next year to hire roles that have that sales component, like a CE role. Right. What about the poor L5 customer engineering? What's the total comp there? I would need to know the market for what you're looking at for the market, and we can talk a little bit more about it. Hey, Jeff, how to prepare for Google interview for SDE2? Yeah, so whenever we talk about any sort of SWE role or software development role, I mean, I strongly encourage you to work the tech. That's going to be the majority of it, right? So LeetCode, Pramp, there's a million great sources out there that are free that you can practice with other people. If you go into our Slack group, you can throw it out there too. And we have free peer practice in the Slack group as well. But something I strongly recommend, work the tech side. Just do it over and over and over and make sure you're really working on not only just your coding skills in general. As you go up the levels, you're working on your system design, and then that you're also working that other side of the coin, which is the behavioral questions. Usually you're only going to get one of those interviews, but make sure you know how to put your examples together. But lots to prep, but definitely prep heavier on the tech side. Hey, Raul. All right. Great to see you back in action. Is it mandatory to disclose current compensation with Google recruiters? Can we push back and deny disclosure? Always push back and deny. It is market by market driven. So in certain markets, obviously legally they can ask for it and might push for it. But I would push back, especially if you feel like, hey, you're currently underpaid, you know the market, and you're going to get paid a lot more by them. So I would push back. Absolutely. Though, Jeff, my interview got rescheduled 3 times and now HR is not replying to my mails regarding any update. Last time they told me they will get back to me, but no response. Wow, that's a really, really bad candidate experience. And so just keep following up, keep doing it, stay the course. I know that this is really this is tough, but if we stay the course and we reach out and we reach out and we reach out and we reach out and they don't get back to us, and then ultimately we get the survey that says your application has been closed out, you can give that feedback, and you can even tell in that feedback, you could say, go into the system, see how many times I reached out with no response, because we need to make sure that future candidates are not feeling the pain of recruiters' inability to be organized and follow up. So make them feel that pain. Really look for those surveys. If you're anywhere in the process, check your junk mail. Make sure that we're just staying on top of that survey. Recruiters have to feel the pain. There is no recruiter at Google or any of these big tech companies that has hundreds of active candidates. Doesn't exist. Even if you had 100 active candidates, you could go in to your applicant tracking system, whatever it is, on a Friday and just go through each one of those and just follow up with each person. And to follow up with each person, especially if you had created templates, you can follow up with 3 people a minute, 5 people a minute. I mean, we're literally talking about every Friday under an hour of work to keep everybody updated. It's a very, very simple thing to do. So it's totally unacceptable. I'm sorry to hear that. Just continue and keep following up. What's normally total comp for a customer engineer? L3 in Austin. I mean, I would think total comp L3 Austin for year 1. We're definitely going to be going into the low twos. 215, 220, maybe 210 for year 1, but definitely into the low twos. I'd be surprised if they're hiring L3 CEs at this point. They don't hire a lot of CEs at L3 in general. It's uncommon. They do it, but that's my recommendation. So you'd want to be anchoring probably into the mid twos would be my recommendation, like 248, 249, something like that. Get HC approved for an L4 TPM, interviewed for L5 before the hiring freeze. Is there a way to pursue L5 roles by 1 to 2 additional interviews? What would be the best way to ask for L5 roles at this stage? As things reopen up, just ask. If I were to do 1 to 2 additional interviews, would that give me an opportunity for an L5? Your recruiter should be able to look at the feedback and say, look, let's go with L4. That's a better move. Or no, you were really close. I think 1 additional interview, 2 additional interviews could get you to L5. Just ask your recruiter directly. Currently working as a contractor at Google. My department will be hiring a lot of contractors to make up for people they can't hire on the freeze. Contractors in high demand. Max, thanks so much for letting us know. If you're able to and you don't feel like it's confidential, please let us know your department. Again, as long as you feel comfortable. The contract thing is tricky because the contract roles aren't posted. So you actually have to be reached out to. So what does that mean? It's going to be the pain point. Get ready for it. Your LinkedIn profile needs to be clean, beautiful, have all that data in there. Because if they're opening up contract roles, the only way you're gonna get them is a clean LinkedIn profile. So if you don't have a smiling picture, you don't have a good headline, if you don't have all your experience in the experience section, they're not going to find you. Okay. All right. We're at the 30s. At the 30s, I'm always going to do a quick prompt on my services. If you use the coupon code TAG, TAG, it's a great opportunity to get $100 off our interview mastery course just today until 11:59 Pacific time today. We do one-on-one coaching. We do one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, all at practiceinterviews.com. Go there, join our Slack group. There's 9 free resources in our free resources section. They're all great resources. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. All right, let's get back to business. Hi, Jeff. Unfortunately, your role for GCP BSA was deprioritized based on my recruiter's update after a 5-week long wait, even after clearing all the rounds with positive feedback. When I asked the recruiter if my feedback will be of any use or advantage for other positions within GCP, I was told this feedback would not be shared with other teams, and you basically have to redo the interviews again for any future applications. Is this valid? Will Google not use my feedback and match me to other teams? Yeah, this sounds like an uneducated recruiter. There's no reason why, if a BSA role opened up in early next year, even middle of next year, your feedback for a BSA role should stay valid for 1 year. And if they found you another BSA role, again, it's got to be the same role, that feedback is valid. So that is very confusing messaging coming from that recruiter. I've never actually heard a recruiter give that feedback before. So you might have to redo it if it was more of like a different type of analyst role. But for just a straight BSA role, maybe redoing one, like maybe you'd have to redo an RRK, or maybe there was another role that was more SQL based. So you need to go in and do a SQL interview, for example. But all your feedback not being valid, that's actually a false statement. Thanks for doing this. As always, you passed HC for a hardware role. Recruiter said team is interested in me and another team might have openings. Okay. She said, I will know by this week after reprioritization. Is it true that HC results are valid for a year? Yeah, typically a year. But remember, there's like lots of little nuances that have to happen, right? It's got to be same team, same sort of role, or it doesn't have to be the same team, but it's got to be the same kind of role. That team would still have to go back and do a team match. But usually interview feedback, HC results, even declined offers are valid for a year, but you need to be able to find and match with another team. And that's kind of the tricky part of it. But yes, that's pretty much true. What should I do if they're not replying to my mail since 1 month and you got an interview scheduled? Okay, so Swati, we answered this before. Just continue to follow up, okay? I love your content. Question, completed my interviews for an L6 PM and entering team matching at GCP before HC. RC said interview feedback is mixed, so you might have to be okay with L5. Okay. What can I do to strengthen L6 position during team matching? Can a good impression make a difference? Maybe if that team really needs an L6 and they see that the feedback's aligning with L6, absolutely. You can always ask for additional interviews too and see if they'd be willing to give you additional interviews. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, is there an update for partner engineer roles prioritization in the US? I haven't heard anything on partner engineer roles, not recently. Do you think this freeze and how it was handled changes the standing of Google as a top tier company? I don't think it changes. I think that a number of items have been mishandled. And again, I have very strong opinions, but I'm not sitting within the organization. I don't have all the people pushing, poking, and really fighting for things. But if I were Sundar, and I'm not, and there's a reason why he's in that role and I'm not in that role, but I would have drawn a line in the sand. Anybody who had an offer in hand or had been giving a verbal offer, was negotiating, I would have approved all of those to just push forward. Those were good candidates. They should have pushed forward with those. And then on any other decisions, there should have been a line drawn in the sand, and it should have been tough. We need to move forward with the business because I think they're damaging their brand right now. I still believe that Google has the strongest overall brand of a company to work for in the world. Now, we could argue that if you're a designer, you definitely want to work at Apple. If you're into social media marketing, maybe you want to work at Meta. If you want to work for the best cloud organization in the world, maybe you think that's AWS, right? So, but yeah, I still think that they have the top brand, but I think they've done some damage. And I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a trend towards some of these bigger companies, like how big can they actually get, right? We're seeing a trend towards more small businesses, more entrepreneurs, more content creators. The economy's changing and shifting in terms of how people get hired. And so I think you will see over the coming years more of a push for people to join small to medium-sized businesses, start their own businesses. The challenge for those companies is just going to be competing with the compensation of these big companies. I know that was long-winded. I hope it helps. Hi, Jeff. Team match done. HC approved for L5 program manager for Seattle. HC approved the same week as the initial hiring freeze. Haven't discussed comp yet. It's a good anchor. Does it make sense to ask the recruiter if you can try to interview with other teams, prioritize roles, or just keep in touch with the role originally matched for? Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that you have a team is really, really positive, and I don't want to do anything negative, but talk to your recruiter about it. Just have an open conversation with them. L5 program manager, Seattle, anchor. What are we going to anchor at for an L5 program manager? You know, that L5 program manager in Seattle is probably going to pay around $300K in year one. So at a minimum, I would be anchoring into the 340s, but to anchor in the 350s, 360s, I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Keep us posted. Good luck. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for all your tips and videos. Got an offer from Google and joining in October. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. We used to get in these lives 10, 15 of these every live. So just to get a couple today it feels good. And it just feels good for the community to hear that people actually are getting hired, that these things actually are moving forward. So congrats. Thanks so much it's always I have so much gratitude for people who come in and show up and let us know, because it just shows the community what's possible. One more question. I email my recruiter weekly and get no updates yet. Do I run the risk of looking needy? Nope. Just continue to show up and be gracious and kind. It's not a needy thing. It's you deserve a response thing. Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. Congrats. 2 months back, I lost interview for GCP storage specialist role in India. After that, the freeze started. Still see the position is open on LinkedIn. And if this position is available after a month or two, can I reapply to the same role? I've already completed a cloud certification and pushing my limits of preparations. Yes, we can definitely feel the pain of pushing the limits of doing prep. But if you interviewed for that role, they're really not going to revisit you for the same exact role for about a year. You could start reapplying at about 9 months, but if it's the same exact role, no. Now, if you find a different role, absolutely apply. But for the same role, they will probably not explore your candidacy. Okay, so if a question ever gets skipped, please just come in and repeat the question. I try to get to everything, but sometimes I do miss them. So let's see what your question is. Good to see you back. I've heard that Google typically has headcount grants. Okay, so we did actually answer that question. And typically having headcount grants in October, I mean, the answer is headcount's usually ongoing throughout the year. So I don't know. I haven't really heard of that. Headcount is headcount, and it's not just magically going to be like this big push in October. Not typically. Okay. Would one get blacklisted if you decide to pursue other opportunities through all CE interviews, but haven't been given an offer yet? Not sure I want to wait forever. Um, well, yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense to start applying for other roles. It would make more sense to maybe work with your recruiter on it. You don't want your recruiter to think you're going around them. They can see all this information, right? So just talk to them about it. Love your content and channel. For behavioral questions in a GCA interview, should I use the CFAST framework? Thank you so much. No. Always use the STAR method for behavioral answers, always. So what's the difference? What's the difference between a behavioral question in a normal interview and a GCA interview? There's only one difference. The difference is that they're going to ask you follow-up questions. They're going to probe a little bit more. What would you have done differently? Would you have changed X? Tell me more about Y. That's the only difference. Always use the STAR method for behavioral questions. Good question. Hi, Jeff. Any guidance on what the typical perf comp hikes are at G? Exceeds expectations and meets expectations based on your past experience? You're referring to base salary and bonuses. Yeah. So meets expectations. When you meet expectations, let's go with like an L3, L4, L5. It's a 15% bonus, but there's some flexibility there. So if you were meets, but you were a strong meets, maybe you get a 16 or a 17% bonus. There's going to be a small threshold to go up. They will not go down. So if you get a meets, you will get at least 15%. Again, L3, L4, L5, L6 is 20, L7 is 25%. And each one, the meets threshold gets a little bit bigger, right? So if it's an L6 and it's 20% your meets, maybe you get a 23% bonus. So there's always a little bit of wiggle in there. Now, as you get to exceeds, again, 3, 4, 5, maybe your 15% bonus is up to 19%, 20%. Again, the thresholds will get bigger as the levels go up. Merits have typically been good. I don't know what's going on with the freezing and inflation and what they're going to do this year, but merits are typically, even for meets, more in the 5% than 2 or 3%. But again, I don't know what they're going to do this year. And then as you get exceeds, strongly exceeds, those merits will go up. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have other questions, but I think it was a valuable question for the community for sure. Hi, Jeff. I've cleared all the rounds for GCP for a non-tech role. Big thanks to you. But due to reprioritization, things are on hold and profile would be sent to Google committee once position is open. Please suggest what to do. All you can do is stay in touch with your recruiter. That's all you can do. It's on hold. So I don't know how long on hold, maybe till 2023, which is probably the most likely thing. Just stay in touch with your recruiter, ping them once a month, but just ask them, hey, what's the cadence? How often should I be checking in with you? Hey, Jeff, completed my full-time SWE on-site interviews back in August, but was put on hold. I asked my recruiter if my performance could be disclosed to see if I did well and qualified for L3, L4, but he told me he could not tell me at the moment. Why would a recruiter not want to disclose performance? Well, remember, I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, there's some legality issues. They're not going to be able to tell you everything, but they should at least be able to tell you, hey, it's strong enough to be considered for an L4 in the future, or you were right on the line of L3 or L4, but across the board, the feedback was pretty good. There's nothing confidential about that. So you just have a recruiter who's, I don't know, doesn't have enough empathy and isn't putting themselves in your shoes. And that's unfortunate. You can push back and try again. Just if you do, just be gracious and kind. UX is a nice hack. If 85% of SWE pay, well, that's practically the same, while SWE is much harder to crack. Well, yeah, I mean, I in some respects, yeah, SWE is harder to crack. For somebody like me, like the SWE interview would be straight up impossible. I don't have those skills, right? And I also don't have that side of the brain. I have the other side of the brain that works well for me, but that coding side is not really there. But UX, and I think we were talking about UX design, but UX design, UX in general, UX researchers, UX is hot. It's a very, very critical role. So it's starting to pay more than it used to pay in the past. What about GCP consultant roles? I'm not sure of what the specific question, but I can kind of try and answer it just because we're still about 20 minutes behind. I haven't heard a lot on the consulting facing roles recently. Okay. But if you have a more specific question, let me know. Hi, Jeff. Had the L5 PM loop August. RC told me that the consensus from the panel was to proceed to next steps. I asked about rating, but RC told me there was no hesitation from the panel. Can you be hopeful? Yeah, I mean, they're not going to keep you around if the feedback wasn't good. And I would do the same thing. I would give you a more general, hey, the feedback is good, but I'm not going to give you a breakdown of your scores in the interviews just because it's irrelevant. You either did good or you didn't do good. So like getting the actual breakdown is less important. So it sounds hopeful. Remember, if we don't do good in the interviews, the recruiter is going to close you out and say, hey, unfortunately, we need to move forward with others, because there's no benefit to keeping you hanging around, checking in, keeping your application open in the ATS, which will muddle who's actually viable and who's not viable. So it sounds good to me. For my GCP manager interview process, recruiter outlined RRK1, RRK2, GCA, and GNL, all cleared before now heading into offer review and offer rollout. Are team match and HC optional steps? Well, you may have been aligned with a specific team. If you were aligned with a specific team and you crushed the interviews, then you could be skipping the team match because you already have a team, and HC could be optional because you just crushed the interviews. Now, you would want to get more specific feedback from your recruiter, and you should know whether you were speaking with a direct hiring manager during this process or not. They should have told you that. So I would check in with your recruiter and keep us posted. How to prepare for a Python coding interview if you don't have a coding background. Applied for a network engineer role, but was not able to clear the coding interview. Got to start with the basics, right? You got to get down to the fundamentals, whatever's going to help you learn those skills, whether it's taking some sort of coding boot camp, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, Python obviously is one of the premier coding languages, if not the most popular coding language now. So, but yeah, you got to learn those core skills. And I'm not a coder, but I would just recommend taking a boot camp, getting onto some of these practice sites after you've learned for a month or two, and start practicing with others. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. GCP Security Consultant role, you interview directly with the team you'll be working with, but you still need to go through a team match. Any word on folks getting moved forward? Okay, so good anticipation on my part, I guess. I haven't heard anything moving forward, but if from the beginning of the process a hiring manager was identified right away, it means that's your hiring manager and you can skip the team match phase, and that's a really, really good thing. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for the valuable content. As always, any tips for RRK and program manager interview? Yeah. RRK for a program manager interview, you gotta wear both hats. You got to have domain expertise in the program manager role that they're interviewing you for. If it's a more generic program manager, you got to bring products into the conversation, especially on the open-ended side, map, search, GCP, and then the programmatic side. So you got to be good at the domain side and the program manager side. Those are going to be critical. And oftentimes in the 3 years that I hired program managers, the domain experience was really strong, but the program management experience wasn't as strong, and vice versa. So be good on both sides. Do you know anything about the state for design verification roles for new college grads? I have seen one verification role go through, but not for new grads. So again, I think it's a one-off, it's a case-by-case basis. But yeah, I think that the L3 roles are definitely going to get the new grad L3 roles are going to get much less love in the coming months, next 3 to 6 months. But I don't have any specific data on these specific roles. After passing all the loop interviews at Meta for an L5 TPM and meeting with a potential hiring manager, I was updated that I'm required for a follow-up interview. What does that mean? It probably just means that they like you. They just need an additional data point to confirm that you're the right hire. The recruiter should really be telling you the focus area of that interview. Okay. So really make sure to push back and say, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what I'm going to be focused in on in this interview? Hi, Jeff. If I reject an offer for now at SWE L4 and I come back in several months, assuming that my package is still valid, will I need to have new T matching or HC? Well, if you've passed HC, then you would not need to go through HC again, but you would need to be matched for a new team. I always like to throw out there, timing is everything, and we have professional reasons, personal reasons, but I would ask you to reconsider if at all possible and you can make it work, because there's no guarantees of team match in the future. Thanks for the valuable content. Any tips on RRK and program management road? Will it be more focused on the technical side? Okay, so I think, was this the same question? Yeah, same question, same advice, right? Now if it's more of a TPM role, then you might have a little bit more of a technical focus, but it would still be technical domain. What would you consider to be a good base total comp for a growth engineer based in NYC? Growth engineer, probably need to know more about that role, and I need to know level as well, and organization. Hi, Jeff. Well, I hear that there is still a hiring freeze at GCP. People do seem to be getting offers. Were they interviewed prior to the freeze? Know anyone who started the process in the last 6 weeks? I don't think that the pre-freeze people, as opposed to the people who interviewed during the freeze, I don't think there's prioritization there. I think they're just going to hire the best people. I don't know for sure, but that's just my 2 cents. Hey, Jeff, hope you're good. I followed up with the HRs for straight 8 months without a reply. Well, some HRs who are at contract roles at Google are amazing, while FTE HRs are really bad. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, just like general bucket statements about anybody. I don't think anybody's really good or really bad, right? You've obviously run into maybe both sides of the coin. I mean, following up with HR for 8 straight months, I'm really sorry to hear that. But I would say, some of the FTEs that I worked with were amazing. Some of the TVCs that I worked with were amazing, and some were not as great, right? And I think the challenge here, and let's talk about it for a second. I think the challenge here is that whether you're a contractor or an FTE recruiter at Google, you're getting paid a ridiculously high salary. Like your total comp is really good. I mean, you're making more than executives in a lot of markets across the world. And so the inability to take these simple steps, it can just be frustrating. I don't know where you were in the process that you've had to follow up for 8 months, that you never had your application closed down and never got a survey or anything. So if you want to come back and tell us more, please do. Thanks for your help and your videos. Awesome. Thanks so much for the positive feedback. Hi, does Google recruitment candidates from Pakistan for vice president position based on a virtual interview? Maybe. I mean, you can always get a job from another country. You just have to have a very unique skill set, because in order to get sponsorship, they have to basically confirm that they couldn't hire for that position in that country. But will they do virtual interviews even for VPs right now? Absolutely, they will. They don't hire a lot of external VPs. That's pretty uncommon. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Of course it does. But the amount of VP roles that will be available that they'll hire for externally will be very, very limited. Hey, Jeff, love your content. So awesome. Your content helped me with my TPM interviews, and you got to the team matching stage with positive feedback, but the role was deprioritized. Will my initial feedback count if I have the opportunity to interview for another TPM role, but with a different team? Yes. You may need to redo an interview or 2 because of the specific domain tech for that team. But like things like a GCA, positive GCA interview, positive Googliness and leadership interview, those should carry over. And typically program managers also have that cross-functional interview, so that should carry over as well. Thank you for being here, and thank you so much. Always love the positivity. Your content helped me with my TPM interview with positive feedback, but looks like that just got followed up, or same kind of question. Hi. Forgot to mention, I really missed you last week. From this freeze to getting rejection mails from G. Your live is like therapy. Yes, and I'm getting a lot of the therapy piece, and especially in the Slack group. It's free. Practiceinterviews.com. Join our Slack group. It's totally free. And many people in the Slack community have said it's good therapy for them because the community helps hold each other up. And it's not just once a week for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, right? So definitely recommend joining that group. Good anchor L7 delivery center manager in India. Take the last 10 L7, 5 L7 software engineers that you've seen hired in your market. Delivery center manager is probably going to pay about 65 to 70% of what those roles pay. So that's what you would look at. And then maybe you'd anchor closer to what a software engineer makes at an L7. So I want to thank you for all the content, amazing work you do. A month ago, I entered Google, and I believe that your content helped me through the process. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for letting us know. Okay, we're starting to get some more positive feedback in here. And as I always tell everybody, I'm a small part of the journey, right? I can throw a few tips and tricks out there, but ultimately it's on you to apply it, practice, prep, do all that hard work. So you really want to pat yourself on the back. And I always tell people when they get the offers, I know that you've already entered Google, but always like pop a bottle, celebrate in whatever facet, get a big ice cream or whatever you like, because it is a huge accomplishment. Congrats. Interviewed for a GCP TAM role 3 weeks ago. My recruiter informed me last Tuesday. Let's see here. Wait a second. I'm sorry. This is not coming through together. Well, let's just go through these comments. Hope all is well. Having a great week. I wanted to follow up. I did see feedback come through of your G and L and R K2 interviews. Both feedback was positive for the most part. Still waiting on the GCA interviewer to submit feedback. I still have not heard back. I reached out to the recruiter. Is the freeze impacting it? But I haven't heard back yet. Any information? Okay, so let's go back to this. So this is for your GCP TAM role. So I have a very distinct philosophy and approach when interviewers wouldn't get me the feedback. I'd only wait a week. If it had been more than a week, it's getting escalated to their manager. If their manager takes more than a week to convince them to get it in, I'm escalating it up to the next layer of management. My VP of one group was very involved in how poor the feedback was coming in because I was constantly escalating up to him, and he didn't like that. And he did not blame me for escalating up to him and say, Jeff, why are you bothering me? He held the managers of the interviewers accountable. And so it's the recruiter's responsibility to emphasize the importance of hiring. These organizations are really losing an opportunity to hire the best talent in the world by not prioritizing it, by putting it as a third or fourth or fifth priority. Hiring should be the number one priority. Hire the best people. If you hire the best people, you get the most work done, you make the most money, and you'll have the best culture. I know that's a lot to throw out the group, but just my 2 cents. Hey, Jeff, any idea on how long the HM process takes for an L5 L6 suite targeting Android? Had the first call with the recruiter early last week. Yeah, so there is no set timeline, but it sounds good. L5, L6 suite for Android. Those are roles that are much more likely to move forward. So just make sure you create that great cadence. If you haven't heard back from your recruiter within 5 business days, always check in. Thanks for the reply. I'd like to get into the Slack community. I've requested a few times via your website. No luck so far. Any help? Go right into the chat feature. If you go to the chat feature on our website and just put your email address in there and say, hey, Jeff, can you send me a personal invite to the Slack group? Occasionally there's a hiccup. 1 out of every 20 people, 30 people or so will just have a hiccup. So I can go ahead and manually do it for you. Okay. Just make sure you go into the chat and make sure that you send me your email address. Hey, Jeff, what would be your top 3 tips to make a really good impression in team matching? Well, that's a great question because I really have three. Great excitement and enthusiasm. It's not a coincidence that I stand for these lives. I have more energy when I do it. And sometimes I need to remind myself to pick it up and get a little more excited. So stand, and that will bring great energy and enthusiasm. Have a great answer for tell me about yourself. 1 minute that's very role specific to that team. Then have great questions. Your questions should be positive. What do you love about the company? What do you love about the role? What is the most fun and unique challenge that you're working on? How do you drive engagement and enthusiasm with your team? Positive, positive, positive. If you have tougher questions to ask them later when they've decided they want to bring you onto their team. Okay, this is my 2 cents. Not everybody agrees with it, but those are my 3 recommendations. Okay, we're rolling only about 10 minutes behind. We're probably going to catch up pretty quickly on the 30s. I always like to introduce everything. So today, tag TAG. You'll get $100 off our interview mastery course. It's a great offer. The course is awesome. People are loving it, and we're getting tons of positive feedback. I do one-on-one interview coaching. I do one-on-one negotiation coaching. We have 9 free resources at practiceinterviews.com. Utilize those. And we've talked a lot about it. Join our Slack group. It's free. We have 3,500 members. They're chatting with each other and helping each other out. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I'm starting to see more cloud roles reopening for G. Also heard AM ad sales for OPG for mobile app is resuming for some countries, but not sure for Singapore. Any thoughts? Yeah, so the Singapore market has looked very similar to the US market from what I've seen. Same sort of hiring trends. But I can tell you that like anything ad sales and ad sales mobile, like to me, that seems like a huge priority. It's a huge revenue generator. And I would think that those roles would be prioritized over others just because, again, they're revenue generating. That's all the data I have. Hey, Jeff, I think you missed some of the earlier questions. Will you be getting to them? If I ever miss a question, please come in and ask. Oftentimes I'm told I miss questions and typically I do go in order, but if I ever miss something, the best thing to do is just re-ask it if you feel like it was missed, okay? I definitely try to get to everything and go right in order, but occasionally I think questions do get missed. You've helped so much in live, recommended your channels to my friends going through the process. Last question, any data on comp for GCP non-tech such as Cloud Security Consultant? Yeah, Julio, come back and let me know level and location. Those are going to be 2 critical data points for me to help with any compensation numbers. What's your recommendation do you have for negotiating a salary increase for lateral internal transfers after being 1 year with the company and only the 1 year of tech experience? So depends on the company. Sometimes companies just have policies that they will not increase compensation when you internally transfer. That's very common. The best way to get into that compensation increase, raise increase when you're already at a company is to sit down with your lead or manager and say, I'm really strongly interested in growing my compensation, and I'd like to create a 3-month plan to show you my value and see how we can get there. Can we sit down and create that plan together? Because in order to get to that next step, you have to create that plan. And that could be, again, with your current manager, or if you're doing an internal transfer with your new manager, you just want to let them know it's important to you, because if you don't tell them, they're not going to know. I hope that helps. Hi, Jeff. Had my interview yesterday. I felt I did well, and except for the RRK, how do you think that will impact the results? Yeah, I wasn't there to see the results. So sometimes we're tough on ourselves. Sometimes we're not tough enough on ourselves. Remember, it's collective. They're looking for the total collective feedback. So one bad interview isn't a deal breaker. So it's just going to require some patience at this point. For previous growth engineer question, L5 marketing automation team. Okay. Still be really helpful. Again, just come back. So we know it's L5 marketing automation growth engineer. Location. What's the location of the role, and then what's the company as well, please. You're welcome. Hi, Jeff. How to get interview calls off campus? How to get interview calls off campus? I'm not sure what that question means. If you want to clarify, that'd be great. Let me know if this has already been answered. What do we know about the new process recruiters must go through to request or approval to write an offer letter? Is this only for entry level L3, L4? Well, recruiters will request an offer letter once you've verbally committed to the numbers. Some recruiters will do it beforehand, but it's an absolute waste of time. So the process is really simple. Once you've agreed on the numbers, those numbers will be sent out and that team can produce that offer letter usually pretty quickly, usually within 24 hours. Thanks for your response and help. If I fail the follow-up interview, can I ask for a lower level? We're never asking for lower levels, ever. If you have a follow-up interview and it doesn't go well, I think your case was you had done the 5 interviews, there was a team match, and now they want to do another interview, never ask for a lower level. This interview could be a make or break, so you want to think positively. After you crush that interview, ask for a higher level. That's the way I want you to go into it, and that's the mindset I want you to have. Since G is likely to have a surplus of candidates competing for a single position, do you think it's a good decision to negotiate an offer? I'm hoping for an offer soon, and I was thinking not to negotiate. 100% of the time, you're always going to negotiate. Their offers have not been a single dollar lower because of the freeze. They are not going to say, oh, you're negotiating, we're just going to go with the backup candidate of Jane, right? It's not going to happen. So don't not negotiate because of the hiring freezes. Everybody needs to go get paid, get that money. Everybody needs to negotiate, okay? So the salaries have not gotten lower. Now, are some of the companies being tougher? Yeah, Amazon's offers suck. They've been really bad lately, and Meta too. Those 2 companies are giving bad offers right now, and Meta's been incredibly difficult to negotiate with. They want some form of data to not give you their crappy baseline offer. The offers from Meta have been terrible, and I don't know what's going on at Amazon, but their offers seem to get worse by the day. These are the data points I have. Take them for what they're worth, but always negotiate, okay? Thanks for the ad sales questions. I've been following up with HR on a 4-week interval now because she said it's still a freeze. Without wanting to sound like a bother, should I follow up every 2 months? Ask your recruiter, how often should I be checking in with you? Is once a month appropriate? Is once every 2 weeks appropriate? Can I come by your house or your condo every day? Just have a little fun with it, but just ask them the cadence that they prefer. If we just ask them, they're going to be able to tell us. Hope you had a great time off. People are saying that GCP L6 L7 account lead positions has been deprioritized this year in favor of TAMs. Do you think GCP TAM is still a go this year? Okay, so yeah, I've heard a little bit of this too, that TAMs, that there's a lack of TAMs and that TAMs are being prioritized. I have heard those whispers. Now, account lead positions, I haven't heard one way or the other. It seems like it's pretty lean, but I have heard a little bit of a push for a TAM. The only challenge is that more on like the engineering, like sales engineering roles for GCP, they definitely pay better than TAMs. Hey, Jeff, what is the total comp for a non-tech PM in Sunnyvale and Seattle? Also, recently got a call from a recruiter role in the GCP org. Any news on whether they have a hiring freeze going on? Well, the entire company has a hiring freeze, so all positions will be on a one-off basis. I think if you're talking about non-tech, we're not talking about product manager, which is a PM. We're talking about a PGM, program manager. And I would need to know a level in order to help you. Absolutely. I hope those negotiation videos help. I always have a really good time doing them. I do think that the levels Formula One is absolutely a game-changing video. I haven't really seen anybody giving that advice, but it removes all the ambiguity from almost any offer out there when there's no data on the position. So I absolutely love that video. Hey, Jeff, just wanted to provide another data point. I was just unfrozen and passed T-match for a network infra in Sunnyvale L3 suite. what should my salary expectations be? L3 SWE should make at least 250 in year one. So I would be anchoring in the high twos, 297, 298, something like that. But you should make around 250. And the fact that your role has been prioritized as an L3 SWE means they have a real need. So that's good news, because not a lot of L3 SWEs are making it through right now. Congrats. Sorry, thoughts on a base total comp for L5 growth engineer on marketing automation team with Google New York. Okay. So now we can do it. Now, growth engineers, I'm not as familiar with, but it's on the UX eng ladder. I mean, I would think that that would be probably at least 90% of what a SWE, like a straight SWE, is making. I mean, I'd be anchoring at least. I'd be anchoring probably in the mid to high threes and expect something maybe in like the low threes. I think that would be a good expectation for a year one total comp. Hi, any visibility on freezes for BD roles? Finished process for L6, strategic partner, dev manager, recruiter relayed positive feedback, and you were in team matching, but no match after 2 weeks. I haven't heard anything specifically on BD roles, but just stay in touch with your recruiter. If it's only been no match after 2 weeks, I mean, it's not a bad position to be in. A lot of people would take that. So continue to just check in with your recruiter every week. I want to say thank you, Jeff. You got a verbal offer in July, comms role, but the hiring freeze happened. Then someone left and they had headcount for me. Your channel prepared me for success starting in October. Amazing. Okay, we got some really good, amazing positive feedback of people getting jobs today. And that's very nice to hear, because it's obviously been a little bit stressful for all of us. And I think, again, we're starting to wind down here. The number of viewers is winding down, but this has impacted me significantly too, and my business. And I need to take a really strong look at things and how I'm going to run my business in the future. And we'll talk more about that in future sessions and the pivot that I need to make with my business. But it's been really, really challenging. So I'm really glad to hear that you made it through. Congrats. It's awesome. Hi, Jeff. I'm a 2022 pass out from tier 3 BE student. How to get an opportunity at Google. Your college has no good opportunities. Okay. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, it's for new grad SWE hires for Google, it's probably not going to happen. Okay. It's going to be a while. So I encourage you to find other roles, gain experience at other companies, because I don't think they're going to be hiring for those roles until at least summer of next year. And I can't even guarantee that. So I recommend finding another position, building your skill set, and then maybe coming back to Google in the future. Follow up for my question, Jeff. Yes, I was referring to non-tech PGM. Can you provide some insight for both L4, L5, comp, Sunnyvale, Seattle? Okay, so program manager, Sunnyvale, year one, L4 to 60 year one, and then maybe 310 for L5. For Seattle, just take a little bit of a haircut, 235 year one, 240 year one, Seattle, and then high twos like 290 year one for an L5. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Jeff, did you rethink about you coaching on system design? I have coached on system design, but I'm better on the solution design side of things. And why do I say that? Because if I conducted a system design interview, which I think obviously some of the foundation of CFAS makes a lot of sense for how you put together a system design answer. The challenge with me coaching for system design is the underlying technology. I cannot tell you if you missed multiple technical components. And that's where I would run the risk of not doing what's best for my brand and doing obviously what's best for my clients in coaching for that. I used to have a coach in Hong Kong last year who covered those system design interviews, but I streamlined the business today. So he's no longer working for me. But yeah, I would say try other platforms. I think I could do it and provide some guidance. I would just be really concerned about the underlying tech and missing things that I wasn't aware of because I'm non-technical. Hey, Jeff, the Fed has announced a 3% interest base point hike. Do you think this decision will impact potential hiring and potential layoffs? Yeah, any of these economic items can impact stuff, right? So I think it's definitely possible. We're in a really funky time. I don't necessarily see the economic challenges, and then we know all the challenges that have happened with the flooding in Pakistan and all the challenges in China with the housing market and their climate changes, and just the climate changes along with the economic changes have made things really challenging. So I think we're in a little bit of a sticking point here. And hopefully we can get out of it quickly. And we all got to just think positively that we can. But I think that all these economic decisions are going to impact how companies hire and how much they lay off. Absolutely. Okay, we've come to the end of questions. I'm going to go in a wrap up. If any additional questions come in, I'm happy to answer them. And I can see some more questions are coming in, so I'll get to those in a moment. And then when I finish questions, we'll just end. If you use the coupon code TAG, TAG, you'll get $100 off of our awesome interview mastery course. It's a great opportunity just today till 11:59 Pacific time. I do one-on-one interview coaching. I do one-on-one negotiation coaching, all available at practiceinterviews.com. Join our free Slack group. Use our 9 free resources on the website. I go live 10 a.m. Pacific every Wednesday and new content every other Tuesday. If I'm not going to do it, I'll announce that to the community on the YouTube page. If you like what we did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I'm just going to go through any and all questions that come in at the end, and then I'm going to sign off. Thanks so much for being here. Long-time listener, first-time caller, awesome. First, thank for all you do. Second, I work in a different tech industry and knew that the GHM from a previous role. Now the GHM recommended me for a role on their team and had interviews in mid-August and heard feedback was positive to skip HC and T match. HM and me are waiting for the pause to be lifted. Waiting is hard. Having said that, I'm getting weird vibes from the GHM. They said they have not lost the position. In case they did, will my feedback be valid for other roles? Your feedback will absolutely be valid for other roles, okay? Yeah, if you're getting the weird vibes, it's maybe just because they don't know. But yes, that feedback can carry over. Will all of it carry over? Just depends on the new role, but it will definitely stay valid, especially if it's positive. That's great news. Looking forward to practice interviews becoming a full-blown interview prep platform encompassing all aspects. There's some opportunities, and again, I think I'm not going to say everything right now in terms of where the business is pivoting and heading, but I will continue to keep the community engaged with some of the changes that will be upcoming in this quarter and definitely the first quarter of next year. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate this community. I appreciate everybody showing up, asking great questions, and I'll be back next week, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much, and take care.